we are going to get started. We do think more people are coming. We've been told traffic is really slow and slippery, so there might be more people joining, but Jennifer's going to get started, so welcome.
Thank you.
Jennifer, she's been with us before. She did a staff PD day for us, I think it was last fall.
Yes.
And it was really helpful, so we said at that time we definitely had to have her back to chat to parents as well, because what she's going to share with you tonight is going to be lovely. So we'll hand it over to you if you want to just introduce yourself, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm very excited. It's sweet to come back, and it was really fun to connect with the staff and with the teachers, but we were hopeful to kind of add the extension, I think, for how the two can kind of work together and support each other, but also give you a chance to twofold. And I said at the beginning, I'm super informal, so please ask questions at any point all the way through. I think the 3 words in the corner are sort of what's going to guide tonight. I think the goals were to talk about kind of growing independence in the kiddos, which kind of very tied for me in terms of growing confidence at the same time, how they're connected and can support each other. And then I think the goal, reflected by the staff, but I think probably every parent's goal, is that hope to be calm. We might say responsive rather than reactive is something else that I'll talk, like making a choice in terms of how we respond instead of just reacting. But that's probably the hardest thing that I will talk about all night. So we can talk about it, but I'm hoping that we can actually be quite like practical and tangible and talk about how. Because you've seen all of the same Instagram and Facebook posts that I have. So instead of just saying them back, I think it's really, and I put these 3 other sort of highlights in terms of, I think these are the 3 things that probably challenge those 3. If I had to ask you, who would say morning is their hardest part of the day? Who would choose, okay? Who would choose after school? And bedtime? Any takers? Okay. Anybody want all of the above? I was thinking, I'm like, yeah, they're all, to me, those are the hot spots and sort of the highlights. But I also think if we're going to link into those 3, my hope is to sort of use those as some really specific sort of moments. I mean, morning is obviously before you come here. And then we have this like, kind of point in the day. I'll just take a tiny little minute before we do sort of any kid-related stuff. I really do feel very strongly that in order to be able to do anything we talk about tonight, it's going to depend on how you each take care of yourselves. And so that idea of self-care, the idea of kind of moms and dads going first and how you set yourself up for the day is kind of woven. And that's why the calm part is the hardest, because there aren't any minutes left over for you guys. And expecting you to show up regulated and calm, and I mean, you don't have to change your pitch, but we do, like, okay, now it's time, and we try so hard, no doubt. And I think sort of just in shifting a little bit language to responsiveness rather than reactiveness, I'm hoping can kind of shift some of the dynamics at these 3 points. Is there anything else that you were really hoping I would chat about? Nobody's getting a message. That's okay. Real life.
I muted my phone.
No worries.
I had to step out for a moment.
Yes, no, I was just going to say, real life may interrupt. I've muted my teenagers, but you never know. So we'll do the best we can. Okay, I wondered if at first, so one of the things that when kids come to see us, we talk a lot about their 5 senses. And probably my favorite kind of grounding, calming, centering, whatever you want to call it, kind of technique would be, come on in. Just the idea of activating your 5 senses, which are what we would sort of call like kind of resetting your brain and body connection. It's a little bit about mindfulness, but it's more that brain and body sort of being connected. With little kids, we're going to talk a lot about them getting the messages from their body so that we can all feel our feelings. Back to being calm, we also have to feel the full range of feelings that come. So we need to kind of get these little messages. So if you would humor me, I'm sure you've all heard it, but if you actually took a second and we sort of did it together, it goes sort of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 just for kids to remember. It's not super important, except it is probably easier if you look around the room and this works. The reason I love it is because it's portable in your car, walking up the stairs, at your dinner table, in your bed before bedtime. It comes with you, sort of this activity. You don't need anything, but with kids it's helpful. So if you just look around and say in your bed, you don't even have to move. What are 5 different things you can see? So just take a minute and kind of look around and notice 5 different things that you can see. Think about 4 things right from where you are that you can touch. And I would say, like, go for it. Kind of 1, find 4 different textures that you can kind of touch. 3 things you can hear. I will stop talking because that doesn't count, but if you really listen, are there 3 different things that you can hear?
Clock.
And yet, probably wouldn't notice it while I'm talking. And so it is interesting to just kind of like slow it down. And in your homes, you'll find the same thing. You can hear someone in the kitchen, you can hear brothers and sisters, you can hear, but really not until that's the only sense you're paying attention to. Same for the next one. 2 things you can smell. Now you're going to want to like, you get to model. And so we always want to say, take a deep breath, calm down. We're going to do that anyways. Like, not really. Maybe just make sure people are sitting closer to coffee, tea. And then one thing you can taste, if kids have like a water bottle beside them, great. You can just swallow. Bedtime's nice and easy. Like you can always taste toothpaste if you've just brushed your teeth. But it really sort of resets this connection. And I would say works equally well for an adult as for a child. If you need to step out or just change rooms and kind of like look, touch, listen, smell, taste, it really just slows everything down and you've given your brain something to do. Nothing else can intrude and sort of throw you off. You're focused and by the time you get to number 2 and are taking a big deep breaths, right, you've also regulated your own breathing. So everything is reset and it's like you can step back into either your morning routine, either your after school. So it's one to just kind of hang on to. Kids love it because you can do it with them and then you can say, okay, do it one more time. See if you can find, and I'll be right back, and kind of leave them activity, but knowing that you are quietly sort of teaching mindfulness, self-regulation, whatever you want, emotional intelligence, or just giving them something to do. They're distracted, but it's sort of this mindful kind of connective activity. So for me, we're going to talk a lot about sensory sort of information, where your system is either, probably when kids are really struggling, their senses are potentially overloaded, or we're going to talk about like underloaded, so not getting enough information, or possibly getting too much information. And with all the love in my heart and our educators and sitting in the classroom, we're actually going to talk about these environments kind of being sometimes for kids overly stimulating to their 5 senses or sort of under stimulating to their 5 senses. So if we kind of pick your hotspots of the day, morning, what are the hardest parts of the morning? Or maybe I would flip the question, where do you sometimes get stuck if you kind of struggle with independence, confidence, or calm in the morning? What might throw behavior or your own kind of calm off in the morning? You can just shout it out.
Trying to get my daughter to finish her breakfast.
Okay.
Dressing up.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Dressing up.
Okay.
Brushing teeth.
Teeth, getting dressed, even the basics. Yes.
Sometimes waking up.
Rewind, right to getting out of bed. Yeah. Any guesses about why the morning is so hard?
Sort of that change from one task of being sleeping and at rest to another, and then also knowing that they're gonna have to leave us to get to school or to activities.
Yep, I think that's a big one. So it's a transition. It's definitely a huge point of transition. Just to state the obvious, you're really tired. It's cold, it's dark.
Yeah.
They're cozy and warm. And so it's this huge sort of ask. You're just to get out of bed sometimes. And knowing that, and at any point, when your little ones, and not so little ones, are struggling, we are hopeful, I think, in a responsive kind of model to ideally be curious and connect with them rather than, and sort of the other C's that we're trying to, would be sort of like controlling or corrective of them. So when, I'm not going to say if they're struggling, when they are struggling, and we just stick to the morning. And if nothing else you take away tonight, if you can just tuck away the idea of say what you see. Be very literal. You're still in your bed. And I know sort of sounds like, like we need you out of your bed. If we are saying something like, get up, I've asked you 3 times, a lot of things shift in those 2 sentences. If you say what you see, you're sort of connected to their struggle. If you are frustrated and louder and there's tone, we're actually adding pressure to something that's already hard. They're cozy, they're tired, they're warm. They may not want to go to school and they definitely don't want to leave you. Not consciously all of that, but it's in there, I think is the hard part. So if we can be curious and sort of connect, I also think we approach with a lot more empathy and understanding. It does not mean they get to stay in their bed or that they're home all day, but you're with them. And I think the whole idea is we want to be, if they're stuck, you're stuck, let's be honest. If we're having a tough morning, we're all having a tough morning. So if we're with them and you say what you see, you're still in your bed, your covers are up over your head. I already turned the lights on. Just sort of, and I sometimes try and pick 3 things so that you are with them and you might hear, I don't want to get out of bed, it's too cold, I don't want to go. You can follow their little statement, say, you don't want to go? And that's where sort of using some inflection and being curious, again, we're still going to school. You know that in the end, it's if we can be with them and get them there, we just want to. And I would say in the morning, if you have it in your heart, so some amazing parents are up at 5 a.m. and they exercise and have a quiet coffee and this beautiful, that is not me. But if it's you and you've arrived at their bedside like beautifully, peacefully calm, I'm impressed and I think it's amazing. Then you're ready because you're actually going to work. As soon as those little eyes are open, you are working. And as long as those eyes are open, you're on as parenting. And I think that's also why staying calm. You're on all day and likely working outside of your home, maybe inside of your home all day, every minute that they're not there. So being able to kind of show up quietly and connected, we're going to move through the morning like this rather than like this, and kind of yelling and controlling and correcting, all the while frustrated, annoyed, and adding pressure, disappointed, threatening to take things away. Like as soon as we go, they go. And they typically will go higher. And so those power struggles, they will always win. And so kind of if we can stay here, the idea is when kids get dysregulated, they only have this one little step to come back. This can mean kicking and screaming and yelling, and you're like, to sort of threaten or scream or get loud, they're just going to go here. And now you've likely also escalated. So regulated's way down here. And we're just kind of gradually climbing. And we just want to stay connected where we can. So that's say what you see. And they say, I don't want to go to bed. Hopefully, a few curious questions sort of has them fairly regulated still. Pressure's off. And you can say things like, okay, I'm going to go brush my teeth, and let them know what you're doing. Or a little bit older, it's hard. I'm going to say 4 to 6. It doesn't super go well. Like when you're ready, we're going to need to be a bit playful in the morning in terms of, let's see who can, I'm going to go get dressed. Here's your clothes. I don't want to wear those. Okay, you can pick out your clothes. You surprise me and leave the room. If we're talking about independence and confidence, a really important part of this and actually being responsive is being willing to let your kids struggle. So getting dressed was one of them, brushing teeth, and struggle, I'm going to say 2 parts to that. Struggling because they maybe can't yet do it on their own. We want to give them space to try. We want to give them independence, opportunity, because then they might get to this other side where look, I did it. And sort of the feeling of mastery, success. You get a chance to be very proud of them, even if it's taken 10 minutes, whatever. to be like, do we want to highlight what they do well instead of, come on, you have to go faster. No, do it this way. If we're correcting and we're correcting, there's no room for independence, and their little confidence is just sort of shrinking. And so when kids start to feel, I love all feelings, and we're going to talk about all of them. We need all of them, but kids tend to go good, bad. And really, it's semantics a little bit, but comfortable and uncomfortable I'll play with. So some uncomfortable feelings are, you're mad at me, I can't do it. Clothes is also remembering like hot, tight, itchy, anything else I've missed? Color I don't like there's all these things on a sensory level, trying, and that's the curious piece. Like if we're really having trouble getting socks, I'm able to say like, wow, your feet are still outside of those socks. We have 3 different colors. Your feet aren't in any of them. I wonder what we should do. And I wonder what we should do is a bit of sort of the end line for me. Has anybody heard of Ross Green and the idea of collaborative problem solving?
Yeah.
It's kind of awesome where sort of like, what should we do? Again, you know the answer. We need socks on our feet. But if we can I don't want to wear socks, or I want to borrow your socks, or like whatever sort of ideas come out, we want to sort of hear and listen to them. It's just an idea. Or you might hear, these are too tight. These ones are so itchy. And then I didn't know the red ones were so itchy. Let's not wear those, And then it's sort of here, because there's always a reason to behavior. And I'm going to say that in quotation marks all the time, because it has such a negative, like they're behaving. And I think, to be fair, sort of under 6, there really isn't this ability to consciously choose to behave well or not well. Good or bad would be sort of because that would require if I sit here and I don't put my socks on, maybe I won't have to go to school. It requires a lot of premeditated kind of thought, the concept of cause and effect, and a desired outcome. We can't do that under 6. So nobody's being difficult on purpose. Nobody's being bad on purpose. Please don't get me wrong. They are difficult. There are behaviors that are unacceptable and not okay, but not with intent. And I think that helps you go back to, remember the piece of let's be curious and let's respond with empathy, which just means there's kindness when we're stuck, and how do we move through it together? It does not mean it's permissive and you can do, okay, who cares? No socks, no clothes. You don't have to get to, who cares about your teeth? They don't get to decide everything, but if we can decide it together and sort of move together, there's significantly more connection and more independence and more confidence, but it requires you kind of stepping out. And I think that's sort of the idea of letting them struggle. I did a little, I feel like I'm not a teacher, so talking and writing would totally throw me off. I apologize. I'm probably not going to add much more to this. What feelings do you think, if you imagine a little person struggling, and let's just say to get dressed, what feelings do you think they might have if they are struggling?
Frustration.
Yep.
Anxiety.
Okay. Or struggling to do anything. Actually, we can sort of go wider. Like if somebody is struggling, they're frustrated, they're anxious.
Defeat.
Yep. Angry.
Yeah.
Disappointed.
Willing as well. They have the need and the want to do it, but
Trying and trying and trying. So maybe you'll hear very young kids saying, I'm stupid and I can't do anything, and sort of like the things that you haven't said to them, but you're at that feeling on the inside, I can't. And so asking you to let them struggle and feel those feelings, which sound fairly counterintuitive to somebody who works with kids and wants to help kids and we want kids to feel those most uncomfortable or the hardest feelings with you. And for you to be brave enough to be the ones in your homes who sort of give voice to those feelings, you sound so mad, or I can see how angry these pants are making you. And it's really frustrating that they're not going on. If you can voice what they're feeling, the feeling that's about this big just went because you understand, or you are saying what you see. You might take a guess and say, oh, these pants are so frustrating. And you may have a little voice say back to you, they're so stupid. I hate them. I'm never like, whoa. You could say, wow, I don't think frustrated was big enough. You are mad at these pants. Like being a bit playful and a bit dramatic, but now they're connected to their own feelings. They kind of got those messages and you can see, so we'll talk about like all their little clues. And that's the other, say what you see. If we haven't dysregulated, I'm going to say if we're like under a 5 out of 10, like annoyed, frustrated, maybe struggle like in lower like case letters, you can say kind of the feeling, you can take a guess at it and they may correct you, which is actually cool. Because I think if we're talking about angry, for instance, we're probably annoyed, frustrated, mad, angry. I would put in that order. Some kids reverse that and other ones are bigger than others. So if you guess wrong, it's actually a lovely point of connection. And now we're talking about feelings, which lets them know it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be frustrated. Of course you're sad. This is really annoying. It's not a bad word. It's okay to be, our brother can be annoying or frustrating. To me, sort of the edges of everything, kind of we hit the brakes if we are unkind or if we are unsafe. And you get to decide that in your homes. I have a boy and a girl, and they were never allowed, I'm going to say that, certainly it happened, but to be unkind, like to call each other names, to hit each other, to swear at each other is an absolute, but they certainly argued, they fought, voices were loud. The only time, no, that's not true. I'm sure I stepped in when I shouldn't have, but those are the edges for me. Like my voice was loud, all this goes out the window, it got messy, and like, that's not okay. But being loud, I hope there's room in your homes to be, within reason, loud. Kids need a way, if we are in the morning frustrated, what was the list? Disappointed, angry, sort of annoyed that we can't do this. How can we feel those feelings so we can get to the other side? If we have to stay quiet and we have to stay polite and we have to stay, like, it's not, they're going to burst at some point. And that will very likely take us to the after school part, is usually the burst and kind of the seconds. Anybody heard of after school restraint collapse? You may want to take a stab at explaining what they know of that. It's unnecessarily complicated.
There's like an emotional outburst that is kind of breakdown in tears, or maybe get frustrated with little things.
Yep, outbursts, breakdown, a release.
Crying.
Crying,
They behave all day in class with the teachers. You know, they see mom and it's like, now I'll unleash myself.
Yep, unleash. These are all the words we need. Explode, meltdown. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it truly is, they've held it all together all day. When your kids come here, similar to when you go to work, I think when kids go, even let's say on a play date to school, maybe to a restaurant, I don't know, let's just say school, they are, if you can imagine, going to work. Think again about their 5 senses, going to work all day. And so receiving everything they see, everything they touch, which includes clothing is a big one, what we sit on, what our hands are doing. So touch is a big one in terms of the sense, everything they hear, everything they smell, everything they taste, all day is coming. And they are quietly, maybe not quietly all day, but we're going to assume they're perfect here, right? Perhaps, sure, let's go with that. But they're working to hold it together because kids want to do well. They want to be good. Generally, they know the rules and they know what is acceptable. And so they're going to work very hard to sort of their capacity. Everyone's capacity is different, but they really will always, I believe, try their best right up until they can't. And when they can't, and someone say if they don't, to me it's a capacity. Like when they hit the edge, it's going to be, there probably are the odd meltdown here, but something, okay, 5 senses, there's a reason for that behavior. After school, we know it's like, imagine they've kind of been holding their breath all day. And I will say, again, with lots of love for our teachers, like all of the points of transition, getting dressed, getting undressed, lining up, taking turns, sharing, reading, writing, building, interruption, outside, line up, sit down, listen, be quiet, your turn. Like It's just they are constantly, switching, working, thinking, doing the best they can. As soon as they see you, it is, and melt is sort of, melt or explode are kind of my two. Some kids just sort of like crumble and cry, and they're sort of exhaling potentially for the first time because you are their safest person. And you often will get the worst behaviors and the worst of them because they know, and that's the attachment you have built with them. So it's actually this very backhanded compliment that you are their person and they melt with you, because for me, like from my sort of professional standpoint, it means we have a strong and secure attachment, which is great, except it's super messy after school. So it's a compliment. It's happening for a reason. How do we? Because it's also the long end of your day is the other part. And you've potentially kind of crashed together. You just got home from work. They just got home from school. Any idea what they need most?
Lots of hugs.
Love.
Okay.
Connection, yeah.
Connection.
Yeah.
Listening.
Yeah.
To be heard, I should say.
Spending time with you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Connection, time with you. Really hard because you just got home too, and dinner and. I'm going to say they need two other things.
Sometimes they just need time alone too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Snack.
Yes, I'm actually going to put that like top of the list. Food and water. Like if you pick them up here, if you pick them up in the car,
Car
if they,
snacks.
yes, have something ready for them. Because imagine, so you sent them off like full, of love and all the capacity for their day, and you get them over here, and they're below empty probably, and so food and water are kind of like, oh. And if you think kind of the five pillars of mental health: sleep, food, water, fresh air, movement. So food and water are like basics. And you also, I would challenge you to kind of come in really quiet, really low key. And your every parenting instinct is likely like, hi, I'm so happy to see you. Like with tons of physical volume and how's your day? Did you eat all your lunch? You might have like 5 questions before they've even spoken, and then like is maybe going to be your response. And like, all they did was love you and get excited to see you. You know how they say when kids are in chaos, we need to bring our calm? I would argue that like, just be the one. Kids will always bring the chaos, the energy, unless you really have it in you and it's sort of playful time. To come in calm and quiet, 2 things. It also lets them go first, and it lets them, I think, to have just a minute. Some kids need 30 seconds, others may need 3 minutes, and some will need 30 minutes to just kind of recalibrate, like reset. I always say recalibrate. I don't really know what that means, but like kind of get back into your groove, because they've been here, remember, working all day. It's been loud, it's been bright, it's been fast, it's been busy. Not good or bad, just 5 senses are likely overloaded. So, on a very separate topic, I'm going to try not to get derailed talking too much about screens, but a little bit. Please, if at all possible, don't let that be the first thing they do, because it really keeps their brain and body quite disconnected. The whole goal is to kind of teach this mindful connection so that we're getting the messages from our body. I'm hungry. I'm hot. This is itchy. I missed you. School wasn't fair. I hate this. Can we please, like whatever's in there, we need it to come out. And if they're allowed to go straight to a screen, it kind of pulls them even farther from, there is a place for screens. They are not all bad. But if you can think food and water and literally sort of that quiet connection, you can offer a hug, but you can be like, like your face says, I love you, I missed you, I'm happy to see you. You don't have to say that out loud. You are clearly offering, and you might have somebody who just like waddles to like, and that's fine. It doesn't mean they don't love you. It doesn't mean they're mad. Tired, hungry, that's all. So if we let them be tired, quiet, hungry, snack. Snack also means I love you, I see you, I'm right here. And your quietness sort of lets them know, I'm ready when you are. There's no rush. It is amazing. And it'll feel really counterintuitive. I always say like more for moms, which is very gendered. I just think it's because I'm a mom. It's really hard to like, you just want to say like, I missed you. I love you. I'm so happy to see you. You can like peek through the rear view. You can reach around and you might get somebody who like kicks your hand away. They could already be in tears. Could still be eating. If kids were in my office and we're talking about this part of the day, I usually just say, what do you really love to do? And I sometimes say, if we're not allowed screen time, what do you really love to do? Because it's like, not everybody's number one, but it is their number one because they can check out and they don't have to pay attention. So it's a bit easier to, I mean, you need to just zone out sometimes, just not yet in their day. So if I say, what do you really love to do? And I didn't bring a ton of, like, it was hard not to bring my entire office, but if you think of sensory things, it's usually like tactile things they can do with their hands, with their sense of touch, and it's as much as we can sort of singularly focused. So Lego, coloring, Play-Doh bubbles, sidewalk chalk I love. I know it's winter, but it works in the winter. If you just get it wet, it turns into paint, or you can just draw in the snow. It still works outside. They're just such simple, kind of grounded, all dollar store. Who cares if it breaks or we lose it? Activities. The other thing I would be mindful of, and I know we're all coming home in uniforms, right? Kind of that idea. We're going to talk about chores and responsibilities, another little piece in there of like getting changed. Some kids love to jump in the bath or have a shower right away, which is very, like if you think about sensory, like smells and feelings, and great if your schedule allows. Some kids are rushing to activities, even more important, food, water, quiet, and just let them kind of play. But you really may already have discovered that kids are sort of losing this ability to play independently, number one, just full stop, to play because of technology. And so if it's there, it's just quick and easy, it's fast, and it's very, like, we get a lot of feedback really, really quickly. So building Lego is a little bit hard for some kids, probably not the right activity. Drawing those little magnetiles, like sticker books, any other, like after school, if you think about what do your kids really love to do that is sort of sensory, what would you pick? Or what do you do in your homes?
We do slime and Play-Doh.
Okay, so you're very nice. Slime, Play-Doh.
We do a lot of craft.
Yeah. Beads.
Amazing. Yeah, non-directive. You can't really do it right or wrong. Like just build and cut, and if you're cool with like bring out the recycling bin. That's where your imagination, and if you also are allowed to be independent and sort of practice and try, it looks messy. It is incredibly grounding for them. They're focused. They have choice. Ideally, it's quiet and no one's telling them to make something. You might be around, and I would again sort of counterintuitive challenge you not to say, wow, you're doing such a good job. As soon as we add a value statement or a judgment, which is not, I mean, they're going to sort of know that you're paying attention, you're proud of them, you like it, and it actually in a funny way adds pressure. You can say what you see, look at all the colors you're using, you have all the stickers out. Oh my gosh, I didn't know we had pipe cleaners. I wonder what this is like. What are you going to use these pieces for? You can be connected and curious, but try really hard not to compliment. Or if you just, and it sounds like a really harsh twist, but it is helpful for me. Compliment is sort of a judgment at the same time. You are judging it as good. And so if we can just notice what they're doing, they are far more likely to talk about it, feel proud, and kind of stay grounded, which is the idea. The other thing I sort of wrote down just for myself, if you think about reading, some kids love, some kids do not. Probably not the best time to force reading, but if the books are out and maybe we're reading at this level, I would highly recommend keeping books that are at this level that they already love and they are masters at reading, that are quick, that are easy. Pillows, blankets, if you're really fun, maybe there's popcorn and they're allowed to sit on the couch, or like just that visually there are a few things available to them. Choice is very challenging after school. And so if you have 2 extra minutes, or you happen to work from home, kind of leaving something out if you are cool with Play-Doh or paint. Those are like the 2 things for me that are just, my poor kiddo's like, nope, too messy. I cannot stay calm if we're painting in the house. So, but if you can, or you have a space to do it and it's visually available, you don't have to say, okay, you need to go paint and you need to do something. This is an option, this is an option. And in your homes, if they just know, even if you can protect 20 minutes to half an hour free of screens, you will have different people to spend the rest of your evening with. I think sort of if 20 and 30 minutes is also for you, you are transitioning back to your next job of being a parent and needing to be on and needing to be calm and responding and like say what I see, and you're working. So you need probably 20 minutes or half an hour. Get changed, wash your face, brush your teeth. You are allowed to scroll out of sight. Go upstairs, sit on your phone. They're busy doing something that does not stress you out to be apart from. Take your 10 or 15 minutes. Please get changed. I know it seems weird, even if you've worked from home, like just shift gears and remember all of your sensory information, because as soon as you go back downstairs or you kind of reconnect, you're working. And then it is not a bad time to introduce a screen. Or if we're happily playing, some kids are going to kind of struggle for those, especially if you're shifting gears in terms of a pattern. But if they, and you have this window where they have time to watch a show or an episode, which I know is virtually impossible because there are no commercials and iPads never stop. And so timers are amazing. Set one on, like you set that. I would argue we have older teenagers. They are not going to naturally remember that they are allowed an hour or 3 hours or 20 minutes. Set an external noise, like some sort of timer that takes out of your hands, okay, 5 more minutes, okay, 2 more minutes, okay, it's almost time to turn. We are controlling and correcting it. We're just adding pressure to something, to a transition that's going to be hard. But if something else rings and reminds them, that might also be for you like, oh, it sounds like the timer went off. Just state the obvious. See what happens. And you might have a little voice say, can I just watch the end? Or there's 1 more minute. And that's where take a deep breath, because it is, you know the night that's ahead of you. And if you, my go-to is usually like, oh, I feel really nervous about saying yes. And we've just paused because we only have a few more minutes. We have to eat, we have to get dressed. I wish I could say yes, but the timer went. We're all out of minutes. Then you can wrap that up pretty quick. Still, I heard you and I responded. We might have a meltdown. You can do everything right that we're talking, and you may still have a meltdown. That's okay. Remember? Angry, frustrated, disappointed, just feeling their feelings. Give it a minute, or 5, or 20. Hopefully not 20. Because if we too quickly say, oh, you look so angry, you sound so mad. No, we're not. These are off. It's the first of your 5 senses to shut down when you're having a meltdown or kind of losing your mind. You can't hear. They can see you, so you can kind of and you can the timer, you don't have to say anything. Use charades and your body language. Put a pillow under their head and step away, not too far, keeping them safe. Hopefully we're going to stay kind with our words and our actions, but give them space to struggle and feel their feelings. And you're close by, but ideally not adding pressure. You can also say, how many minutes do you have left? Or how much time do you need? If we're playing a video game, that's I just need to finish this level, or there's blah, 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 blah. I don't really know but take a breath, because it doesn't make it easier to turn it off in 5 minutes or in 10 minutes or in 15 minutes. You're potentially prolonging the meltdown, the disappointment, and the feelings. But if you have time and you want to try, go for it. We can sort of collaboratively problem solve and work our way through the night, or it is really sort of in my heart, it is your job for your kids to be predictable, consistent, and then these are your boundaries. And I would say this little space, if you are consistent as a parent, 80-20 is kind of the goal most of the time, predictable most of the time, and the boundaries are the rules you set in your house. So you get to decide kind of what those are, but these are the edges that are going to keep your kids safe. And when they push against all those edges, which they are built to do, that's sort of where they learn. That's how they know they're loved, they're supported, and they're learning because the response is always, what do we have to do when the timer goes off? I immediately whisper when I know my voice is going to be like probably disappointing when it's coming out, but it also reminds me to just, I'm not trying to be like, it's okay, like we're going to get to do it again tomorrow, because now it's inauthentic and I'm holding my breath and they can sense that we've got some weird energy and we're going to probably have that done anyway. So we can try, we can validate, we can give a warning. I like to sort of just say like, we have just a little bit of time left instead of 5 minutes, 3 minutes. We don't have a great sense of time for a long time. So I think just being as clear and specific, but just remember consistent, predictable, the boundaries are these are your jobs. It's not really their job to remember the rules because they're going to jump on the couch every day. And you know how I said under 6, there's no intent. Parents will challenge that probably more than anything I say. It's like, no, they actually know because they look at you, that little, and I think, no, they're checking. Like this is still the kind of, they know, but they need to be sure. They are learning and you are teaching. So it's kind of like, yep. And our kids are 16 and 18. The rule is phones go downstairs at night. Probably still more nights that I'm proud to say. It's like, they just look in and they're like, and then it goes downstairs. Some nights I say more than I should or need to, and I'm a bit like, really? I have to, but they don't want to put it downstairs. They hit the wall, they know, and sometimes it's down there, they do a great job, and then I try to be lovely and say, hey, thank you for taking it downstairs. Or I don't say anything, which I think is equally respectful at this point at their age, but it's more often than not a just face on the side of the door like, and then off we go. Any questions so far? Was bedtime the most hands up? I think it's a big, so if we're talking about like morning and we're thinking about our own energy, after school bedtime, you all, I'm going to guess, have the least energy at bedtime, as do they. And I will go back to your morning point when you said they don't want to separate now. I just gave away. I was going to ask, why do you think bedtime's so hard? That they don't want their day to be finished, I think is and they're tired. Any other guesses actually why bedtime might be the hardest? Or one of the hard spots in the day?
It all starts again the next morning.
Yes. They might be thinking of that. Yeah. I think it's kind of like, in a way, it's quite simple. They're tired. Mm-hmm. You're tired. The other thing that's really important to remember these 5 little senses that have been busy activated on. Also the way that your body gets information to your brain. So it's kind of, they're busy, they're working all day. Almost all of them shut off. By that I mean get zero information at night. And so kids suddenly like have 100 questions. I'm scared of the dark. I'm scared of monsters. I think I heard a noise. I'm hungry. All at the very last second. And it doesn't matter whether you've had 3 snacks and you've checked the closet and you've been under the bed. They are all of a sudden like under there's nothing happening. So they actually genuinely, I think there's quite a long period developmentally where bedtime, it's sort of this instinctive, I'm scared. And I think we need to honor that, just recognizing there's a lack of information. So it's another reason I love that, like, let's check. You can actually still see lots of things when the lights are out. You can touch lots of things in your bed. And the touch in particular, actually all of these will, at nighttime, kind of remind them that they are safe and they are grounded and they're connected and they're loved. But we have to activate them. So instead of saying, like, stop moving, just be quiet, go to bed, let's play a game, let's check. And make sure that our body is still telling our brain the truth or kind of getting all of the right information. So do those 5 senses when the lights are off. Whatever you have agreed to, like night light, twinkle light, stars on the ceiling, whatever you have that works. Sound machines, put them all on and then go back. It takes like 30 seconds. You do 5, they do 5. They do 4, you do 4. And that you're just kind of quietly settling this and reconnecting with them, but also being sure truly that they are kind of mindfully or like genuinely nervous systems online and they're getting the right information. You can hear somebody in the kitchen. You can see mom's lights on. You can see things in their room that reminds them where they are. You can touch special blankets. You can smell your pillowcase. You can smell mom. We all there's a distinctive and it's just sort of very calming, very reassuring, and very grounding. I'd say you're just sort of settling, and the big deep breath, we want them to be taking big deep breaths and slowing everything. We can't tell them to do any of those things. So ideally doing it with them in a playful way, but not a playful way. The other hot tip for bedtime, what's your best guess, research-based, in terms of how long we should be off screens before bed?
Just an hour.
2 hours.
You guys are well read. It's technically 2 hours, which I'm going to confess is probably impossible and definitely does not happen in my house. So to be fair, I think I want to start there and sort of just make sure you understand why. And I will tell kids straight up, it's not because you're being mean. But the amount of light, sound, sort of information, you could say content. So remember, coming at us, and picture kids on a screen, even video games, but some of them are a bit more interactive. They are unresponsive. They're just not moving. Sights, sounds, content, is flying at them faster than they can process. Their brains over here being very well distracted and stimulated, and they're not getting. Very rarely do kids hear them laugh. They definitely don't move. They're not. Some games are interactive, so I'm being kind of a bit dramatic with all of this, but it's why sort of when you turn it off, you also often have a meltdown because all of that information just gets dumped into their nervous system to process really fast because they weren't receiving the messages, for lack of a better, they weren't paying attention, they weren't interacting or moving or laughing or doing or talking or kind of moving with the information. So that and the disappointment with it being turned off. And often it's a parent interrupting something that they were doing, which is fun. So that's about 5 reasons to have a meltdown. It's not really about technology, it's kind of about what's happening in their nervous system. And knowing that, I think, again, if we can sort of understand that as adults, how do we cross over that threshold to kind of turn it off or gently turn it off? We need time to process all the information. We need time to reset and kind of reconnect with the real living people in our home. We need to get our senses back online. And we very likely need to have a snack, get changed, brush our teeth, back in pajamas. There's a lot of things to actually do. So we need time. I think 2 hours, I'm not going to ask, go for it, is amazing. The longer, the better, but unlikely. And so I think it's kind of giving, just understanding that your little ones need a realistic amount of time. The other thing that doesn't happen when screens are on is that no melatonin is being naturally produced. And very likely if screens are on, volume's loud, light's loud, so these are all really wide awake. And to just shut it off doesn't mean they okay, information or stimulation's gone, so now I'm calm. We have to, if you can, lower the lighting, change music in your house, and we need to get all of those sensory clues like PJs and stuffies, and we need to reconnect with you before we go to bed. Another time-based question. How much time do you think you need to spend with your kids a day for connection to be significant or enough? I'm going to use that word carefully, but what's your guess? What would research say? How much special or sort of time do you need
20
to?
20 minutes one-on-one.
Pardon?
20 minutes one-on-one.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would say 30 minutes at least, paying attention to where kids undistracted, not distracted, they're not distracted.
You make a very good point. There's different kinds of kind of time and connection. It sort of hurts my heart, but I will be honest. it's around 10. Some people will say 5 to 7 in research, and I think, ugh, I don't really want to admit that or say it out loud. But I think if you imagine a connection as, I actually wrote this down because it's like uninterrupted is one. So you are not doing anything else. Ideally child-centered or child-led, their choice.
They do what they want.
And one-on-one is a big one. So you guys have 4. That's tough. But I think if we have it in our mind that we need to spend a special hour with them every day, or just like, oh, I see them all the time, we're together all the time, like they get lots of my time. If you go back to uninterrupted, which means like you're not cooking, you're not folding laundry, you're not on your phone, you're not sending emails, you're not with a sibling, now you start to think like, oh my gosh. So 20 minutes is like beautiful, but you could do 10 and 10. That's amazing. It really would shift your homes if you made a commitment to 5 to 7 minutes. And honestly, set a timer on your phone, because you will be shocked at how long 7 minutes feels. Yep.
I also want to add to that, doing this daily.
Yep.
And they knowing that you're going to do it the next day. It gives them a sense of like, okay, I've done it, and I feel good, but I get to do it again tomorrow, so I don't have to struggle anymore.
Yeah. It's so like predictable, consistent. If they can anticipate like your 10 minutes, or we get to play Uno. Dad always draws with me before bed. Mom comes in and sings for 5 minutes, but they don't need to know the time. But if that's part of your, yes, they will. It takes a minute to kind of get the routine, but it does not take a special hour and Starbucks and this, and it doesn't take stuff. They just want you. I think he said the word validate, or to see. They just want you to listen to them. They just want you to hear them. So I would say the other thing is that you're not talking.
Yeah.
Just listen to their little stories. Everything in us, I think, wants to teach, or we want to correct, or we want to defend. Like imagine they're saying, well, you never spend any time with me. And this is your special time together. Oh, what? Like every night before? Your natural instinct when you're being attacked is to defend. It's just primitive. And so if you can breathe, listen. And again, remember I said, like, when they say a little something like, I hate this, or I don't want, or you never spend time with me, it is important to say, do you think I never spend time with you? Just use their little, because it will actually keep them talking. My daughter, and it's my favorite, she would die if I told you the story, but she accused me of plaiting when we were in her room one day, and I was like, what? She said, you always plaity. And I said, I don't know what that is. And she said, you're always playing and tidying. And I looked at her and I was like, oh my gosh, 100% true. Like folding laundry, tidying up the dollhouse. Like I'm playing, but I was really 80% cleaning or tidying, and I was not. And she wasn't somebody who got overly, but I was like, oh, done. Like I thought,
Self-realization.
Yeah, you're right. I could talk about this all day. And I'm like, oh, yep, I am not actually playing with you. And a lot of times parents will say, and playing is a hard one because kids they want to make all the rules, then change the rules, and you're doing it wrong. And so it's kind of hard to play with them sometimes, and that's why don't talk. Not your choice, and just let them lead. And I would say it's actually your moment to kind of enjoy them. Just like notice them. Be curious. Ask those questions. Set your timer. And when it goes off and it's been 7 minutes, I think it's very fair to say, oh, I just need to go switch the laundry. Because they're like this. Their capacity is like here, because you just filled them up. You can step out and go back to real life and change the laundry or empty the dishwasher. Tell them the truth and do what you say. I need to empty the dishwasher. Do it. They can hear you, and just you listen. As soon as I'm done, I'll come right back, and then we'll read our book. And you may have bought yourself 5 to 7 minutes to get something done. They're regulated, and they're doing activities, and I'm going to say like upstairs or in their room, before bed.
And I was just gonna say, I noticed with us is that when we do have the one-on-one time, they tend to listen more after too, like when we ask them to do something, it's like they listen more. It's interesting, right? Because it's like we give them time to be with them, right? And then when it comes to like chores or things like that, like they listen more. I feel like
they have more capacity.
Yeah.
You literally filled them up. And so it works because all they need is connection. And I wrote this, I don't know where I think the goal, sort of this letter C, comes about a lot in what we do and talk about. But if we are shooting for calm, our kids need to feel comfortable. They need to feel connected. And then they can feel calm. And I would argue they are confident. Like it's just sort of, it's this lovely, and so if we're working at comfortable, I mean, think about your homes. Think about things like do a little sensory audit when you go home. Some families always have the TV on and screens are playing and something's cooking on the stove and there might be a dog barking and all of the outside noises and cars are honking and blah, blah, blah. Like it can be, that's just one of your senses that's kind of being assaulted, and lights are on and, brightness and TV. Think about that. If you kind of there's a lot on Facebook right now about having dinner by candlelight. I'm sure you've all seen, how do we flip the script a little bit and learn to sit at the table. Food is a whole nother, and I'm happy to come back and I love to talk about food and kind of sharing food as a family, but doing that, lowering all of the sensory and making it kind of special or different changes everything. So I think when you make kids feel special for 5 minutes, you all have 5 to 7 minutes for sure. I wouldn't say you all have 20 minutes undivided, focused attention for each of the kids that you have. I'm going to push you 5 to 7. You definitely do. And if that's your goal, I think it's so attainable and you will definitely see a shift in behavior. And if these 3 are kind of our hot spots, you're right, it just starts to be this magnetically positive impact because their capacity is consistently higher. If you are noticing them when they're struggling and using your words and saying their emotions, but not getting mad at them, not adding pressure, trying not to rush. That's the hardest one because you can clearly see the clock and you don't have a lot of time. But if you're brave enough to try to slow everything down, to notice them, say what you see, try it on a Saturday or a Sunday or a night when you don't have activities. It doesn't mean there isn't a meltdown. It's just usually a bit shorter. And then they're going to come and find you. The challenge then is not to shame and blame them and to go backwards. It's done. Let's keep moving this way. And then you might say at dinner time, we had a really hard time after school today. We tried all the right things. If you need to revisit something or somebody needs to apologize or have to be consequences, give it a minute. What you have a split second for is connection and time, curiosity, empathy. And then sort of all of this correction and all of the consequences can come later as needed, but it is not what will shift behavior in your home, noticing what goes well. It doesn't mean there aren't mistakes. Kids feel terrible or they want to do well. They want you to be happy with them. They want you. And so they'll do well when they can. And if they aren't, or if they can't, then we're up and we kind of have to figure out why. And I genuinely, I'm going to tell this story because it worked, but I was a bit shocked at the way we came into the house. And so I just said, you just slammed the garage door through your backpack, through the kitchen. My daughter's at the counter. This is my son. And I whispered because I was you're so loud. And we got a full, my teacher, and it's not fair, and I failed this, the worst day, kind of dump, and stomped upstairs. And my teenage daughter said, he was so rude to you. And I said, actually, he did not swear. He did not call me names. He did not scream at me. He was really loud. And I said, it sounds like he had a really bad day. She's he was so rude to you. And I said, he wasn't rude to, I said, I didn't love that, but he wasn't rude to me. And honestly, he was 16 or 17 at the time, big enough. We've been through the pattern lots of times, downstairs, awkward hug from behind, and just said, sorry, I had such a bad day. And I turned around, I said, this is not okay, to the backpack. I said, but that sucked. So I wouldn't use that with little kids, but that was a bad day. And talked and talked and talked. More likely what I would do, or I think a human response when it's crash bang, I would say, hey, don't slam the door. What is the matter with you? I'm going to, on top of his day, which I know nothing about yet, I'm going to shame and blame. or correct and control. And you better believe my house would have gone like, it would have been the same, but probably now we're swearing and he's screaming at me and calling me because he's already walked through the door, sort of unknown to him, like this massive pile of emotions. At the end of your day, these little guys come home with all of these invisible to them emotions. Somebody hurt their feelings. They fell at recess. They didn't eat lunch. They're hungry. Work was too hard. It was hot. I didn't get to go outside because it's too cold. Like all day. And they meet you with this. And we're usually that last little, like, too many questions. Or we hugged too tight. Or we brought the wrong snack. Like, might even happen. And so we're kind of this last piece. And then they're going to explode. But he came back around. I still, like, this is not okay. He picks up his own backpack and tidied up, but he didn't really do anything wrong. And so the rules at this point in our house, like no swearing, no name calling, they know. And had he, let's say, or when they do break the rules, there is a place for consequence. I think the biggest consequence, 0 to 6, they are fairly ineffective because it just doesn't stick yet in long-term memory. Taking something away only works if it's directly connected to the action. If we misuse the iPad, please, let's just take a break from the iPad and do something else today. It doesn't need to be gone for a week. It's like, I think we're done. Like, we had a really hard time listening with the iPad. Let's just take a break. Meltdown. And just, you got to see it through so that they know you mean what you say. But it's sort of not being the one to shame and blame on top of their little pile. So kind of the idea of say what you see, I might not to like 7 to 12, I might not say, oh, like you're, quite so, but I would say, hey, like, you've been upstairs a long time. You're in your bed. Good. Like, still say what you see. Just a bit more sort of regular language, I think, but we're still trying to connect because what they're doing is happening for a reason. If we're curious and we're connected, we're more likely to get the content of what's going on. If we're just like, don't do that and hurry up and you're still not dressed and we're not going to get, instead of saying you're still not dressed, you can say, your pajamas are still on the floor. Oh, what are we going to do? The morning and sort of that idea, and it's a little bit controversial, I'm a very big fan of being more nurturing in the morning. They are capable of getting dressed. They're capable of zipping coats probably. They're capable of, I wouldn't feed them. That's just for me. But have something that's easy, quick for them to do. But it's okay if you zip up their coat and I would narrate a little bit and say, I think I'm going to help you zip up your coat this morning. Your body's so tired. You're having such a hard time getting dressed. I'm going to nurture you and sort of help you through a tough, I know you can do it, so you're not taking away a skill. There's a time. And they zip up their coats probably, hopefully, independently all day. Like, they'll do it when they can. So if they can't, can you be more nurturing? Can you be more consistent? Like, where are the edges? Nope. And if you kind of do that quick little, I'm doing my part, then we're like, oh, I asked you to get dressed. Your clothes are still in your bed. You're still in your bed. What happened? You're stuck. They're stuck. But we're like this instead of like this. So I think it applies. You just sort of have to be, and I mean, you can talk very regularly, 0 to 6, a lot more playfulness is going to be helpful and sort of little challenges or little games or space, again, to be independent and to struggle. And then we can come back and check. Bigger kids are capable and can do more things. So then we want to notice what they did well. You addressed so quickly. I'm so proud of you. Like, notice what they did well.
Yeah, I just have a question. So our oldest one, he's a teenager now. He's 13, and it's just a whole nother game. And he went from being this sweet little boy that was always so happy and helpful and everything to just like the attitude started to come and just anger and frustration, and it's like it's difficult sometimes, right? Because I'm like in my head I'm like, oh, I miss when he was just so easygoing. Yeah. And it was literally like he turned 13 October, and now it's like I'm really starting to see the changes in him. So getting him to do stuff now, it's not always like, okay, yeah, sure. It's more like it turns into like, no, why do I have to? Like, it's just like you start to get more tired, which I know his body's going through a lot, obviously. Yep. As a teenager now, I get that. But just like, how do you deal with that? Like, because we're pretty strict with screen time. They're only allowed an hour screen time a day, and he he was upset because most of his friends at this age, like they're constantly playing, like, and it's like even his friends say, they're like, oh, your parents are so strict, you know, why do they only allow you an hour? And he even asked our doctor, he said, now that I turned 13, like, shouldn't I be allowed more screen time? And it was actually both the family doctor, he has the pediatrician and the eye doctor too, because we had both of the appointments, and they all said the same thing. They're like, just because you're older doesn't mean, you know, it's good for you, like you can have more screen time. Thank God. Yeah, said that, right? So like, it's not just me.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's very difficult because, you know, his friends are on it all the time, and so whenever we do ask him, like, we're like, okay, you know, the timer is on, like all 4 kids, they all have their timers, so every so often we hear the timer going on the oven, on my phone, on his phone, it's like, okay, whose timer is it now, right? So, but with him, like, he's like, no, I'm not done yet, you know, like, he just gets really into it and frustrated, so it's hard for him to get off. And, you know, there was times where I'm like, just turn it off, like, just unplug it, you know, like when you were mentioning it earlier, because I'm like, it feels like it's almost a struggle every day now, right? So sometimes what he decided to do is that he's like, well, I'm not gonna have screen time during the week, and he'll save like that hour from each day, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, he wants to have the 2 hours straight. So he won't have screen time. Yeah. So he can play longer with his friends. And I'm like, but it's still 2 hours. Like, I see what it's doing to him, right? Because he's very competitive, and he's playing with his friends online, and his face is all red, and like, you see the difference, right? Like, there's a few times where we actually took it away for the whole week because like you started to get more frustrated and angry, and I'm like, you see, this is what it's doing to you, like, that's why it's not because we're mean. But I think he's just having troubles understanding that now.
And I think to be really sure they understand sort of the impact of the light and do that little, like, your brain's way over here, your body's not getting, if you are allowed, and it's actually very smart, and probably a nicer week to not, but then 2 hours, we just need to move, like every, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes is probably a big ask, but at least every half an hour, like, get down, there's a go down, interrupt, pause button, go pee, get a snack, or bring a snack, just pause. So our kids, like, if they're on, I'm like, pause. Yeah. And then have a real life conversation. You can almost see the, like, what? Yeah. Like, and they need a second to kind of come back to the, so I think it's helping understand kind of what is happening to your brain. And also, I think it's a really fair to be brave enough to say, it sounds like you're really disappointed with our rules, or it sounds like you're having a very hard time. It doesn't mean you're going to change anything, but there is this beautiful space to sort of collaborate. He is a bit older. Maybe it's about staying up an extra 20 minutes or having something extra. We want to feel, it doesn't need to be screen time to your point, but, you know, kind of what is it? And I don't know, like, what is it, you know, why is he getting stuck? That would require a long conversation. And I would do that privately, sort of apart from, it's a palpable shift. I knew it, researched it, studied it, happy to talk about it until I lived with it. Didn't realize it was sort of, and really, I mean, like now, sort of 9, 10, there's a significant shift in hormones for most girls around the age of 9. Doesn't mean we're fully, sorry everybody, not fully into puberty, but it really is sort of this, we talk about feelings and clues and getting all the messages, those are invisible. They're going to knock you flat. You didn't see it coming, they didn't see it coming.
Yeah, it's like you just woke up and like before you'd always be hugging and everything. Now it's like, oh, don't touch me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like my first day, I can't touch you know. And then there's other times, well, he'll come back like late at night because we lay with each one of them and have like the one-on-one and talk about the day. So then sometimes he'll come closer. I'm like, oh my goodness, like, you know, this might be the last night.
Come back. Remember the awkward from behind hug? It happens. But I think it's just, if you establish conversation about feelings, and I know it sounds very like, what? Like being very literal, just saying kind of, if you can't read what's going on, actually saying, I don't get this. Like, we're so clear. You're allowed to be frustrated, and sort of differently to show your emotions when kids are 9 and up, I think is really fair. Not that we don't show emotion, but your kids aren't responsible for kind of managing your tone, your emotions. So you do want to be a little bit more sort of regulated, and you're holding those edges still very firmly. But I think it's fair, like in the look, to say, listen, I've asked 3 times, I can feel my frustration and I would use my hands all the time getting bigger. I need to go sit on my bed. And go sit on your bed. Like, you are modeling now choice, you're modeling, like, I don't know, strategies and sort of taking space, and you consequence of separation is the biggest consequence. They lost you for a minute, and they're going to sit with, she's disappointed, she's upset. That's a lot to kind of sit. You don't need much more than that. And when you're ready, or someone's probably going to follow you, and you can say, I am not ready. And you can go wash your face, you can go in the bathroom, brush your teeth, whatever, like take a minute. But I think with an older, like when something doesn't fit or you've asked, or I think you have to kind of say your emotions, and it's fair to say we're having a really hard time with screens with you. What should we do? And then you have to be willing to hear out, you're just listening. You don't have to change. I think when you get to that question, like, what are we going to do? You know we're going to school. You know the answer. That's not the point. We want them to kind of have this, and want them to understand your rules, and they don't have to like them. But if you are consistent but we can still talk. There can be conversation. We can be connected, and letting them struggle means they're going to be upset with you. They're going to say, and the biggest sort of that idea of like hearing your kids, listening to your kids. Bigger kids will yell up the stairs, I hate you, you're not listening to me, you never listen to me. And truly, parents struggle to really listen because we defend really fast. And I can hear it in myself, and it's just so, a mom or dad will say, you can tell me anything. And then someone's going to start a story, and we're like, what? When did that? And what do you, like, we've interrupted, we've judged, you're like, so you can tell me anything is actually not true. Inside, all those, you're going to hold. Listen first. And if we need to correct or consequence or something went really sideways, but first your kids need to know, like, you like them, you're interested in them, you care. It does not mean they set the rules. It doesn't mean anything changes, but you really listened to them. And we might end with, you know what, this is really hard. We're at the point of tears and hormones, and there's nothing I send a puppy in, I might drop off tea, I might give a hug, and we're just feeling our feelings, and okay. So it's never about fixing, and I think that's the other sort of really important message I would give to kids directly, but for you don't have to fix any of their feelings. We want them to feel them. They need all of them. I do want you to see them. I definitely want you to name them. And maybe in your homes, you need to really think about, like, are they allowed to be angry? We say, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be, how are you allowed to be angry in your house? And then it's like, oh, we can't jump on the couch. We can't slam doors. You can't scream. You cannot. So you have to kind of flip, like, when you're feeling angry, what can you do? And like, you may need to talk about that as a family. It may be different when you're 6 and when you're 16. And so, when you're feeling really sad, are you comfortable with kids running away from you? Hopefully not slamming doors. I can hear you on that one. But like under the bed, crying. Let them cry for a little bit. They're struggling, but they're just sad. They're okay. And then when you can knock, you can go. But we want them to feel them with you, so that when they come here, or when they're out in the world, or they're at a play date or somebody's house, they know what it's like to be sad or disappointed or hungry or tired. They have the skills. We know some strategies. And then we're going to come home and like with you. It's sort of the idea.
So one more thing, because I know throughout the years, like, things always change depending on what you're reading or listening to and stuff like that. So I know before, when we had our first one, we were doing the timeouts, and then I know over the years some people were saying that timeouts are not good because then you're showing the child that you're not there for them, right? Like, there was a lot of different reviews and things like that. And now, like, what we do is, like, whenever someone's upset or whatnot, like, we just tell them to go to their room, and it's not necessarily a timeout. It's just for them to calm down, right? Just kind of like have their space. And I know sometimes when you read different articles, some people are against that as well, right? Like, they're saying that you should be with your child, whether they're happy, sad, or angry, whatever. So what's your input on that? Like, which way are you?
It's a little bit of semantics, because I think, like, the idea of a timeout was sending someone away, closing a door, and like, when you're better, or then you can come back, is kind of why it got such a bad reputation. I think taking space is a huge skill. I think going to your room and sort of or going and flopping on the couch, or running and hiding in a tent or under a blanket, like, is actually quite a strong strategy, because kids are trying, they run away and they hide to try and feel safe. anytime over 6, we're also now dealing with, we feel embarrassed and remorse kind of almost immediately. Embarrassed is a very wild ride because we didn't feel embarrassed before we were 6 because we had no sense of anybody relative to myself. And now all of a sudden, so if you just very quickly, like all of the feelings they might have, you're disappointed in them, you might take something away, I'm in trouble, I'm embarrassed, I feel bad, like it's too much information for your nervous system. So you can, and again, how you say it, and say, it sounds like you need some time by yourself. You can move and leave them where they are. You can ask them to go upstairs. You may walk them up. You don't necessarily need to close the door. I think staying means they have an audience. Embarrassed, remorse. I did something wrong, you're mad at me. That's hard to sort of have that person watch you, then have a meltdown. So lots of kids get bigger if somebody is watching because it's uncomfortable. Staying close, and you can just sort of like point to where you'll be sitting. Again, they can't really hear you if they're having a meltdown. But being close, but privacy and space, it's never bad, I think, as a strategy to take space. And so allowing your kids to run away from you within reason in your home up to their rooms, that's their safest place. Their 5 senses are most quickly soothed in their all the things they can see, touch, do, they're all there. So it's going to be pretty quickly grounding. So it's not a black or white. You are welcome as parents to send kids to their room when they've busted through and sworn and broken some things, sure. And the other side of that is we need to learn how to repair and recover, apologize when we need to. Like, there's so many layers. It's not good or bad. I think it was just the idea of like, when you're ready to behave well, you can come back. We actually need to be willing to kind of love them through all of it. But if they broke through, like if they, let's say ours on the way up, like knocked over a plant and like created a huge mess or swore at somebody, they're still going to go. And when they're regulated, we're going to deal with either a literal mess or an emotional mess, like they already know they made a huge mistake. And so I don't need to shame or blame, but how we repair and recover would be, and that sort of changes by age, really just cleaning the mess. And again, the loss of connection with you is enough consequence for kind of, I would say even under 9, to be honest, unless we've directly like broken a rule and use it to something inappropriately, and we just need a break from it, would be. Just in terms of, and I know we're kind of close on time-ish, I really didn't bring much from the office, but just kind of thought in terms of who do we listen to, I'm going to have some biases, obviously. For me, it's pretty rooted in that goal to be responsive. Sort of, they'll talk about peaceful parenting or proactive. I think that's where there's just connection centered. Dr. Becky, I'm sure you've all heard of, Good Inside. I have not read this. This was Merry Christmas to me. Good, yeah. I'm so excited. But she's online and she's quick little tidbits. She's pretty tangible, real life. She's a doctor. I tend to listen. It's pretty, it sort of is a tangible, just has really good examples and they seem real. And then sort of a tangible like response and what to do. Calm the Chaos. I think Calm, because we were talking about Calm, she also has a very sort of wide neurodivergent approach to things in terms of how to genuinely, sort of with the hardest to manage kids, kind of stay calm. And again, the book has like visuals and pictures, and so do these. They're a little bit more dated, but I love them. There's 2 different age groups, 2 to 7, and then sort of older. And again, there's just like real life. And I feel like it walks you through like, oh my God, that happened yesterday. Or like, it's just really quick. They're not textbooks. So if you're a reader, kind of those, like there are some, there's certainly, and then for kids, this one is learning a little bit about ADHD and just how everybody's brain works and why some go fast and some go slow and how they're all different, it's actually quite cute. I do have this book here, Color Monster. It's a lot of homes.
Really, really good book.
It's our favorite one.
I resisted it for a long time because I don't like the idea of monsters and fear. And putting the 2 together, and then finally someone said, you have to at least read it. And I was like, it's really good. I don't love the idea of monsters for kids, but it's a lovely one to read, and it's not scary. And then the little Spot series, and the libraries for sure has them. You don't need to buy them. They are so well written. So there's one like a little spot of worry, a little spot of anger, a little spot of kindness. They're not all the uncomfortable ones. They're so well written, and the visuals, like they're just easily accessible. And I just like it really talks about worry or anger or frustration. And so it's an awesome one to read with kids. Any last minute? I just brought the others like little snowman sort of emotion. If you guys want little coloring things for you. And one little like hot chocolate, the idea of meditation, mindfulness, if that's kind of more I think just sort of my last little, the more you practice those 5 to 7 minutes calm and connected, the more easily, to your point, I think like your kids can access that feeling. If your nervous system is constantly dysregulated and you're always heightened, and I would still to some degree blame COVID for flipping us all over, where many homes live in sort of this dysregulated, heightened, it's always chaotic. So the feeling of calm, and then you think quiet, comfortable, connected, is actually what has become unfamiliar. And it has become uncomfortable because we have so little time where our homes are quiet, we're not rushing, and we're connected. So it's super backwards. And so that feeling for some kids, like bedtime when it's quiet, they're dysregulated because they're not used to that feeling. So practicing, if you want any strategy to work, you have to practice it. You have to do, if you want them to use a calming corner or quiet corner, you have to actually use it a lot. Like when you don't need it, but just read in there or model that, or sit on the couch with your blanket and with tea and with all of your things. And just, if you want them to read, you gotta read. Like if it's really that idea of, if we want to feel calm, we need to practice. You need to know what works for you, model that, they're likely to join. Yeah.
Sorry. What to do when the kid cannot control his anger? For example, my kid is 3 years old.
Yeah.
Like when he feel angry, he throws stuff. And he escalates things that immediately for a very silly thing.
I know.
For example, if I don't have muffin in my car, then he wants to go under the seat belt, he shout in the car, he wants to do something unsafe.
Yeah.
At home, he wants to throw anything in his hand. What to do in this case?
So, remember I said we gotta let them feel their feelings. 3 is so hard because they think they can do everything and they want everything. Impulsivity is like 10 out of 10 and they have very little capacity. So it's a really, 3 is tricky, and we are still constantly, I think, controlling and correct. Just to like developmentally, we want to be independent and we can do almost nothing safely independently. So I would say like chance, I know this sounds silly, chances to be angry, to really throw like big, occupational therapy calls it like sensory seeking, pushing, pulling, kicking, like finding things in your big, heavy jobs. They call it like moving furniture, even though he's 3, like lots of jobs, responsibility. Anytime you ask your kids to help and do anything, I know it sounds, they get a chance to feel proud. We get to say thank you. So anything that he can do to help, but try and make it real. Hanging coats up, putting shoes away, pushing chairs in, carrying groceries. He's little, but kind of hard, heavy work gets out some of those feelings. Also big play, those little trampolines in houses or somewhere in your house where we are allowed to throw things and do. We had to reinforce a corner of our basement. We had a hockey player and the pucks turned into real pucks, and that's what we wanted to do. And then it got to be winter, and so extra plywood, and yes, you can shoot pucks in the basement. Like, we needed to be big and angry and loud. So can he jump or throw or roll, like kind of big gross motor? Not every house, yes. Go outside is the other. And I know it's winter. Please bundle them up and go in the backyard. You can be big, loud. As soon as temperature's different, environment's different, and sort of all that input is different, usually like you just watch the feeling kind of, because they're allowed safely in your backyard. They can run, they can kick, they can roll, they can throw, and not usually get in trouble. In the car, it's tricky. I would not start driving until we are safely buckled. It can be a bit of a standoff, and if it's sort of, that's like feeling, and we have to just, you can't make someone calm down. Staying here is hard. Maybe radio's off. Maybe you step out of the car if they're kicking your seat. That can be scary for kids, but if you also need to take a breath and it's actually hurting you, then we need to move. You're not going anywhere. But The car is a tricky one, so we can unbuckle our seatbelt and like safety more than kindness for sure is the edge. But it really is when they're not angry, letting them be angry, big, rough. If you Google OT, sensory seeking, even bedtime occupational therapy, you'll see like big games, rolling kids up, rocket, like just sort of big movement where they're getting lots of input. Then they don't seek the physicality or the input as much. So I'll borrow that one from OT a little bit, not mine, but yeah.
I used to do, sorry, go ahead.
I have a quick one.
Yeah.
So I have a almost 3-year-old. I often wonder how much time is actually appropriate for her to watch TV or to be on the screen. And if it's okay to sometimes just kind of like, for a couple of days, take it away. I don't know. Like,
Yes, I would say that she or he needs 0.
Okay, 0.
Again, it's not realistic to say before 3 they shouldn't
Yeah.
have screen time. There's 0 need for any of us to have screen time. And so it's knowing that it's kind of doing this. And I think the hard thing with, I was going to say babies really little, is that they cannot process the information they're receiving. So we're kind of flipping that little nervous system. But if you need it for a few minutes so you can get something done, I would be like minutes. Because that's when all of the sensory integration is happening, kind of like learning to use all of your senses at the same time. Thank you.
We're just going to say thank you so much to Jennifer for coming tonight and for sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you very much for coming.
Jennifer, you'll be around for 10
Yeah, I'm here. I'm in no rush. Thank you for cutting me off though.